Okay, well, hello everybody, and welcome to the presentation. Thank you so much for being here. So for those of you on Facebook, howdy. And for those of you on Spreaker, howdy, you can't see me, but you can hear me. And for those of you on TikTok, well, howdy. So we are now live on our presentation. Thank you for being here. Happy Friday to everybody. Good evening, and good evening. So first of all, let me just let everybody know before we get into the heart and potatoes of the presentation tonight. First of all, I want you to go to this website. These are the folks that produces the shows, and it's kgradb.com. kgradb.com. And make sure you check that out, folks. I say it every single Friday. I tell you about it, but make sure you put Bishop your promo code, because you're going to get 30% off your subscription. First of all, it's already inexpensive as it is, but they have paranormal, all kinds of paranormal shows, and they are fantabulistic. But you got to go and you got to subscribe. 30% off. Make sure you put Bishop as your promo code. Also, I want you to go to my website. Check me out there if you want to. It's Bishop James Long. No, T-Rex did not exist in the Bible. BishopJamesLong.com. And there you are. That's the website. You can go. I have online classes that you can sign up for. Just click a class link. I teach demonology, angelology, paranormal studies, and genealogy. I've been doing that now for about 20 years. So that's online, and you can go to that website, click on the class link. Tonight, remember, we have night prayer. You can just go to BishopJamesLong.com. That's it. Scroll all the way down to the very bottom, and boom, you'll see night prayer link and the picture, and just click it. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. Okay, and then finally, if you want to go to the church's website, you want to know more about the church, all you got to do is go to the church's website, and that's usocc.org. And you'll have all your information there. It's all there for you. Check it out, and there you go. Okay, so that's the fun-filled, exciting the business aspect of today's show. Now, TikTok, I always say this because I have to, unfortunately. TikTok, I love you. But trolls, I'm not going to pay attention to you. You will not get a response from me. You will not get a reaction from me. Quite honestly, I'll ignore you because we're done with the middle school stuff, the elementary nonsense, the high. I have no patience for that. I have zero patience. So if you're going to come in and you want to troll just to get attention because you didn't get enough attention when you were a kid, you're wasting your time here, because the only attention that you're going to get is from the moderators, and they're going to block you. So how do you not get blocked on TikTok? It's pretty easy. Number one, don't be hateful. So it's sad that I have to say that these days, but you have to. Don't be hateful. Don't use profanity. Don't use demonic names, because that's a form of summoning. So we just don't do it. Don't spam. Spamming is when you constantly ask a question over and over again. And the moderators have been here for a long time. So if it's a basic question that they know what I'm going to say, then they're going to give you the answer. So if the mods answer your question, that's probably because that's the answer. And also keep in mind, I can't get to every single question. That's why the moderators step in and help, right? Because there's a lot of people asking me questions on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, KGRADB. There's a lot of people asking me questions on Messenger. And there's a lot of people asking me here on TikTok. So I can't get to every question. So just understand that I'm running the show on two different computers, this computer and this computer. So just understand that. So if you don't get angry if I can't get to your question, I'll do the best that I can. Okay. So be kind, be considerate, don't troll, don't spam, don't use profanity. It's just so silly that you have to say that these days, but you have to. You just have to. It's a bishop ring. I'm a bishop of the church. Now, and again, you can go to usocc.org and you can check all you want to about that. Now, if you have theology questions, I will address theology questions. So any questions that's related to God, that's related to faith, that's related to I will answer those questions. That's fine. That's no problem. But let's be respectful of each other's faith. That's all. Pretty simple. Today we have a very, very, very cool show on. It's rare. Really rare that I have guests on. And the reason is I don't have guests because, quite honestly, a lot of people who talk about demonology, they don't have any experience. They talk about it. But as far as actually taking on cases, they just talk about it. So to me, there's very few people who actually are skilled and who are experienced in this field. So I have a rare treat for you tonight. My guest this evening is Jason McLeod, who began his career as a demonologist and paranormal investigator in 1990, working with the pioneers of the modern paranormal investigation craze that thrives today. He did work with the late, great Ed and Lorraine Warren. Everybody asked me about Ed and Lorraine Warren. Well, he actually worked with them. Now, McLeod is one of only a handful of true Warren proteges who has not only worked directly alongside them on harrowing cases, but who also carries on their legacy to this day. Now, I personally met Jason at the Mid-South Paracon in Louisville, Kentucky in 2013, after he had published his debut novel, Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare, the terrifying true tale of demonic infestation, oppression, possession, and exorcism. Now, Jason is a seasoned demonologist who trained directly under Ed Warren. Folks, you're getting the real deal here. Not somebody who just read a book on demonology. He actually works cases. He is an intuitive empath. His sole purpose is to rid this world of darkness and to teach others how to do the same. So tonight, and what will most assuredly be an outstanding and enlightening interview, we're going to learn more about who Jason is and more about several of his most phenomenal cases. So this is going to be a show that I think you're going to enjoy. I think I know I'm going to enjoy. I speak to Jason often. So let's get him on the phone right now. Okay.
Hello.
Well, hello there, Jason. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm fantastic. Well, I just did your interview, and people are excited about hearing from you. I've talked a lot about your books on social media, so it's always good to have you on. I appreciate you sharing some of your time today.
I really appreciate all that you've done for me, and the ability to be on your show, especially if I'm only one of two guests that's ever been on it.
True statement.
So who do I share that honor with?
Well, I've had Willie Windwalker Gibson on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I've known Willie for a long time, and I was just telling the folks that I very rarely, it is rare that I have guests on the show, and the reason being is because I obviously talk about demonic cases and obviously possession. And if you're in the paranormal, and if you've been in the paranormal community, Jason, you know as well as I do, there's a lot of people who like to talk demonology and who like to pretend to be something that they're not because they've never worked a demonic case in their life, but they watch YouTube videos or paranormal shows, and now they're calling themselves a demonologist.
Right.
And that seems to be happening quite a bit. It is interesting that it does seem like there's a lot of teams out there now who claim to have demonologists on their teams, and I'm thinking, well, how many demonic cases have you actually worked? I've worked on 1,000 of them. And you talk to them about their cases, and like, buddy, that doesn't sound like a demonic case. It sounds like you've been watching too much paranormal shows.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, Jason, I did. Of course, we gave the interview. The introduction. So let's get into the real interesting conversation. Again, for those of you, Jason McLeod, McLeod. That is his last name. He actually worked with the Warrens. So everybody's asked me about the Warrens. Well, now you're going to hear from the person who actually studied under them. And they're the protege. I mean, he studied under Ed Warren. Okay. So tell the audience, if you would, about yourself and how you ended up training under Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Okay. Well, my name is Jason McLeod, and I had an incredible synchronicity take place to me. And after I'd read The Demonologist, which was their most terrifying cases, Ed and Lorraine Warren's most terrifying cases that could all be proven in a court of law, because there were so many people in positions of authority who had witnessed these cases. I read that book, and I was absolutely terrified for the families that were enduring this type of activity, but especially the little children, because no child should have to be, oppressed by forces of this nature. So I put the book back on the shelf. This was when I was a senior in high school, and I really didn't want to get involved at that point, but the seed had been planted. And it wasn't until 1990, I was with my friend Lou in his car, and he was a former Army combat medic with the rank of captain and a current high-ranking paramedic within the Norwalk, Connecticut EMS system. And we're listening to the radio in his car. And again, this is 1990, so that's when people actually listen to radio stations. And so there was about a case that the Warrens were working on. And I turned to Lou and I said, that would be so cool to work with them, And he said, yeah, no kidding. And the next day he called me and said, you aren't going to believe who just called me. And I asked who, and he said, Ed Warren. And I was like, what? Right. Well, Ed was having heart issues at the time because of all the incredible cases that he was investigating, and he wanted a medic for their team. And he called the chief of the emergency EMS system, and that guy recommended Lou. So he gave him Lou's phone number, and he called him and invited him to their Monday night class inside their home. And without even thinking, my instant response was, you have to get me in there. It's time. And it wasn't time, when I was a senior in high school, but in 1990, that was the time. And basically he went and told Lorraine all about this synchronicity. Now there's a big difference between synchronicity and coincidence. Coincidence you can look at just like as a random happenstance, but synchronicity, I believe, is something that's orchestrated by higher powers to put these things together for us. And he told Lorraine all about the synchronicity, and she nodded and smiled. And, said, we'll bring Jason next Monday night. So I got to go the next Monday night. I walked in the door to their museum where the class was being held in their home in Monroe, Connecticut. And across the room is this, Lorraine with this big beaming smile. She's just glowing and radiates love. Yeah. And she came walking up to me and says, hi, Jason, I'm Lorraine Warren, honey. How strong is your faith, honey? Was the first question she asked me. And I said, I have immense faith. I believe that I and the Father are one, as are we all. We're all children of God. We're all protected by God. And she nodded and smiled. And she asked, why do you want to get involved in work of this nature? And it was always of this nature when she was referring to cases involving haunting phenomena. And I explained, I read The Demonologist. I was very concerned for the families involved, especially the kids. And I really want to, help. And she asked, so it's a calling then? And I said, I believe it is. So she welcomed me aboard, and we basically listened. We sat down in the chairs. There were good, back in the day, back in, 1990, when I first got involved, there was a real amazing core group of really good, kind-hearted people. And these people weren't after, this is the age before selfies and the age before social media and all this stuff. We really genuinely wanted to help people who are suffering from this type of attack. And so we got to listen to the cases that were currently under investigation. And they assigned Lou and I, my friend, the paramedic, on a case representing the Warrens the very next evening. And I was like, what? Being thrown right into the fire, literally feet first into the fire. But it was the most amazing series of events that completely changed my life. And I know we're very limited on time, but that was something that just completely changed my life. And by the way, I talk about all of this, everything that I just mentioned in the chapter analysis section of my Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare book. So people can understand after they've read about the case and after it was resolved, they can understand who I am, presenting the material and what my experiences were. And they were all nothing short of extraordinary. And I'm just beyond blessed to have been able to work with these amazing people. And I call them the pioneers of the modern paranormal investigation craze that thrives to this day, because they were. There wouldn't be any of these paranormal teams out there or any of these television shows if it weren't for the hard work of the Warrens. And it's just, I'm so thankful and grateful for the opportunity. And it is a rare thing. Like I said, I'm just like one of a handful of people that really have worked with both of them, and continuing on their legacy. And I'm just so proud.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are on TikTok, you can, or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you guys can ask questions, but keep in mind that it's scrolling so fast, so it's hard for me to catch the questions. So just bear that in mind. But we'll do the best that I can to get your questions to Jason. Again, for those of you just joining, I'm interviewing my buddy Jason McLeod. Now, before, look, I tell you this, I've told you this before, folks, you have to get his books. If you want to know about demonology, then I really believe Jason, I've said this so many, Jason's books are required. You have to get it if you want to learn a true about demonology and the case and what goes into it and what happens. I've said this to you, Jason, before. The way you write is brilliant. I mean, folks, when the thing is I get easily distracted because there's so much on my mind that I have to focus on this and worry about this and worry about that. And people are pulling me in so many different directions. But when I actually was reading Jason's book, I was so enthralled that I finished one chapter and I was like, okay, I gotta do this report. But I was like, no, I gotta see what happens in the next chapter. You can actually like you are there. The way you write is just unbelievably talented. So first of all, I want to make sure everybody knows, where can they get your books before we continue on the conversation?
Well, thank you so much for that praise. And I'm really, really happy about that. I do have a bachelor's in English creative writing. So that's always been my passion, is to write. And again, I think it's meant to be, it is the calling to be able to convey what happens in these cases in written format. But you can get my books through darksiege.com. It's www.darksiege.com. I have a PayPal link on there. I sign the book, I personalize it, and I mail them out. There's 2 different volumes in this case. There's Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare. It was resolved at the end with the Catholic bishop's help. And 2 months later, these entities came back against this family and everybody who was involved in the case in such horrific ways, including incubus and succubus attacks, which are sexual in nature, that I had to release it as a second novel. Now, of course, I sent that PDF to Bishop Long, asking him for his opinion and his advice, simply because I was hesitant to even release that portion of the case because of the graphic nature of the sexual attacks, because I write in such a cinematic style that you feel like you're right there experiencing it. And I didn't really know if it was too much or not, but Bishop Long is the one that convinced me to saying, you have to release this, if I remember that correctly.
Yep.
And I did. And so darksiege.com, I have PayPal links. The book's 467 pages for volume 1 and 385 for volume 2. It's lengthy, but it is a perfect recreation of this family's plight from all perspectives. And it's written in a cinematic horror format, like you're reading a fictional Stephen King book, but it's all absolutely real. I wrote myself in as just one of the people that was involved in the case. And it's just, I do all these huge paranormal conventions, and I have so many lined up for this year so far. And I sell them there like hotcakes because people want to know what it was like to work with the Warrens and what this case was like and so forth.
Yeah. And again, folks, for the moderators there on TikTok, if you could do me a favor and make sure you put in the URL, www.darksiege.com, darksiege.com. And that's where they can get the books. I promise you, I give you my word, if you buy the books, you will not want to put it down. Well, I'm telling you, it is. I remember the scene in the first chapter, how you set everything up. And man, whoever taught you certainly did a beautiful job. No question about that as for creative writing. But of course, you have to have talent as well. So I think with the talent and whoever taught you just did, folks, I'm telling you. You got to get the books, darksiege.com. So let me ask you this question. Has there ever been a demonic case that you worked that you felt it was simply too much to handle?
No. And what comes to mind is the very first case that I went on with the other Warren investigators. And it was nothing compared to what happened in the Dark Siege case. And we were never going to talk about that case, by the way. Nobody was ever going to know about this case. And the reason I decided to write about it, the family wanted no recognition whatsoever, and they still don't. And even Paranormal Witness contacted me and asked to have the family on, and they said they want absolutely nothing to do with it, not even having their faces and their voices obscured because of the nature of the attacks that happened after they came back after them the second time. But the whole reason I wrote about this case finally is when I found out that there were all these other paranormal teams out there with their T-shirts and sunglasses and baseball hats and, XYZ paranormal, and using Ouija boards inside people's homes. And I'm like, what? Right. So I contacted John Zappis, of course, who was with the Warrens when I first got involved. And he said, it's an epidemic, and I said, I contacted, the principal in the case, and I asked if I can recreate it. And just the entire reason I wrote about this case is to warn, especially preteens and teens, against dabbling in things they do not understand, specifically Ouija boards, which is why this case spiraled completely out of control. If the teenage boys never used the Ouija board in the house, it would have been a simple matter of crossing over a very negative earthbound human spirit. But instead, they opened the floodgates by being teenagers and issuing all the wrong challenges and so forth. But so the first case that I was brought on with representing the Warrens with the other Warren investigators, and they were some of my friends that are still my friends today. We were sitting in this living room. It was a 2-story house, and it was old dark wood paneling on the walls. It was a very dark room, but the lights were off. And on the landing of the stairs on the opposite side of the room, according to Drew, who was just almost as talented and as psychic as Lorraine was, he and Donna were describing a jet black form standing out in the darkness right there on the corner of right there on the first landing of the stairs. And I pulled out of my pocket a pair of blessed rosary beads that my grandmother had given me, just to have them in my hand as a form of protection, right? And all of a sudden, somebody asked, Jason, what did you do? I'm like, what? He has rosary beads. And Donna says, put them away quick, right? And I'm fumbling with them at that point, like saying, what's going on here? To stick them in my pocket. Well, apparently when I pulled them out of my pocket, down from the landing came this black form, blacker than black, deeper and deep, standing out in the deepest midnight blackness is the way you describe it, came right up to me, right? And as soon as I put them in my pocket, it went right away back on the top of the stairs. Now, I didn't sense it, I didn't feel it, I didn't see it, but my intention, because intention is everything, in every way, was for self-protection, not for challenging it, right? And because when we all discussed this case the next to class Monday night at the Warrens Museum, I asked, well, what could have happened, right? And he said it could have burned you, could have scalded you, could have teleported you, suffocated you, scratched you, done all number of things. And I just didn't give that any credence whatsoever. I said, no, it's not going to mess with me that way, because I didn't intend to challenge it. But that was my first encounter with something that was in the house. And actually went up to try to, interact with me in some way. It didn't in any way that I was able to notice, but this is how these things operate. They operate beyond human perception. And people claim, oh, well, nothing happened when I used the Ouija board. Well, we can only perceive visible light, which is 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. 1%. We're blind as a bat. Cats and dogs can see more than we can. And so when the dog is growling in the corner and looking up at the ceiling, there's something there
that
we can't perceive, and it's trying to protect us, right? But this is how these things work. And they could, they operate behind the scenes to try to, weaken you to the point where they can actually, inflict more harm. Because that was the first case that I had that happen to me. But I've never been attacked, and I've seen people attacked. And to see somebody attacked by something that is invisible to the naked eye, and you can see the waves of, just the reaction, they're being moved or pushed or shoved or really slammed or scratched or overcome to the point where they're screaming and screeching. I mean, that's, you see it in the movies, but, it's something entirely different to see this happen, as you know.
Absolutely. And for those of you just joining us, I am interviewing my buddy, Jason McLeod. Again, he's a demonologist. He's a paranormal investigator since 1990. He worked under Ed and Lorraine Warren. He's a published author and of some amazing books, which you have to check out, folks. You have to buy www. Again, make sure you go to this website, www.darksiege, SIEGE.com, darksiege.com, and make sure you pick up the books. I'm telling you, because he writes about a case that he worked that was intense. I mean, and people always talk about incubus and succubus cases. Well, you have to get the part 2 of Dark Siege. You have to, because that book is what I loved about the book. It wasn't filtered, and it wasn't fluffy. He walks you through the steps, through the case, and it was intense, and it was a pretty aggressive case. Now, one thing that used to bother me, it doesn't bother me anymore, but it used to bother me that people always think everything is demonic. They say everything is demonic. I have not found that to be true. I have not found that to be a true statement. As an investigator, as an exorcist, when I've done plenty of investigations, I've had lots of cases where I would not define it as a demonic case. Now, what about you? Have you had cases where it was not demonic? How would you respond to the individuals who think everything is a demon?
I've met incredible people in my travels, and in these last several years, especially, and one of them, Tracy Moses, and she is just unbelievable. And the things that she sees and the things that she tells me and describes, in many cases, are interdimensional insectoids, and it boggles my mind. It's like Call of Cthulhu type of stuff, if you've ever heard of that type of thing. But she'll describe like a centipede, like a giant centipede glommed onto somebody's head and all the way down their back with its legs wrapped around, stuck inside their torsos. It sounds completely fantastical and ludicrous, but when she clears it and removes it, the people are freed from these situations. And simple things like the dogs freaking out and jumping up on the bed and whimpering and cowering and acting like they're actually under attack, and the people in the room being, all the heat in their body feeling like it's being drained. And she'll describe this black, tar-like, viscous sludge on the floor of the room where this is taking place, where she'll do this remotely, by the way, and a shimmering blackish portal in the corner of the room where the dogs were growling. And she'll get rid of the goo, and she'll close the portal, and then all of a sudden everything's good again. Or people, it's just amazing. So we're dealing, we're multidimensional beings, and we're like I said, we can only perceive 1% of what's around us, and there's so many layers to this and so many levels of vibration, that there's so much out there that we don't even know about, that people lump into calling it demonic. But the interesting thing, Bishop Long, is that no kind of religious intervention will have any effect on an interdimensional being that is not, it won't be affected by those types of things. So she has to use different ways to clear it. And it's just amazing to me. But it's, how do you describe it? If it's something that shrieks and freaks out at the mention of Jesus Christ or Archangel Michael or any of these things, then that's something that very well could be demonic in nature, because a human spirit won't react that way. A possessed human would. A cohabitated human probably would. So, we have to look at the different levels of how firmly and completely are they fully possessed or just cohabitated at that point. There's a whole field of study. Dr. Edith Fiore stumbled upon human spirit cohabitation in her book, The Unquiet Dead, and I recommend that book to read. I mentioned that in my Dark Siege analysis, but that is something fascinating too, is that the people can be cohabitated by the discarnate spirit of a human being who hadn't crossed over properly, but is remaining earthbound and affecting them in a negative way.
Okay, and of course, again, moderators on TikTok, if you guys can just again the URL. A lot of people are asking about the books, and I can't put
Okay.
I can't put the comments in while I'm doing the interview. So just constantly, if you would, just pin it or remind people. It's www.darksiege, Dark Siege, all one word, siege.com. So if the moderators, if you could please put that in there on TikTok, that would be much appreciated. www.darksiege.com. Thank you, Megs. And you guys, you can pin that and that'd be fine. Yeah, it's interesting when you had mentioned, and it's true because I have had cases that I would define as elemental. Our grandmother was Native American; she was Cherokee, and so there are a lot of people who believe in elementals or even poltergeist. I could perform a million minor rite of exorcism on poltergeist cases, and it does nothing at all. Nothing at all. And I've always found that when you get the individual help who's going through that extreme emotional stress, that reduce that anxiety, reduce the negative energy, then I have found that the poltergeist activity will decrease from my experience. But I got to ask you, because this is really important. All of this is important. We, especially today, and this is not one of the things that we talked about, but you have experience in the music industry. And Jason, I got to tell you something. Of course, you're very talented there as well, but I am really concerned about seeing a lot of celebrities, especially in the music industry, show subliminal messages about Satan during their concerts. Even Satan is flashing very quickly, and you can watch it and go back and stop it and rewind. Why do you feel this is so prevalent in the entertainment world?
Because this is something that one of my favorite researchers of all is David Icke, ICKE, and he's been at this for 30 plus years now. And he said Hollywood that's the way that they program us. So when you think about television, right? And we're old enough, Bishop, that we remember the TV Guide.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
And it's the program guide, right? It's what programs are on today, and it literally is programming us. And the thing, it is so dastardly what they're doing, because Holly was the wizards, the wood that they made the wizard wands out of, apparently, right? I don't have any personal experience with that, but that's what I've heard. But Hollywood, they're casting this spell on the population by anything they project in the movies. You know, when we watch television screens, we enter the alpha state of hypnosis within 60 seconds.
True.
We're literally being programmed by whatever it is we see, unless we are vibrating outside of the range of that programming. That's the key, right? And that's where the Matrix movies are so relevant, because it's real stuff that we're talking about here. They're using the subliminal messaging. They're using the words, the Super Bowl show several years ago, clearly. I was watching the Super Bowl this year saying, let's see what kind of satanic BS they're going to pop, they're going to bombard us with this year, right? So a lot of these celebrities have come forth. I know that Rihanna did, that Lady Gaga came out. They said that they were all approached, offered all this money and riches and fame and fortune if they gave themselves over. And, what the details of that were, I don't know. But they use these screens and the programs to literally brainwash us and to condition society. And people need to turn off their TVs, I'm telling you, and stop watching all this crap. And if you watch all these horror movies, for instance, you're giving your consent. If you watch the End of the World movies, all the different ways that they're showing us asteroids and alien invasions and plagues and pestilences and zombie apocalypses and things like that. Unless you say, I do not consent to this, and you watch it as an observer versus feeling like you're immersed in it as a victim, you're giving your power away, and you're giving your consent to experience whatever it is that they're showing us that they want us to experience. And these are dark, diabolical forces that hate humanity, and they hate God, and they worship the devil and Satan and whatever darkness they can muster. And they walk around among us like they're normal people, and they're not. And it's so disturbing. The Grammys are another example. I didn't even watch it because I'm so tired of being exposed to this stuff, right? And it's just so in your face. They're not even hiding it anymore. They used to hide it. They had to use subliminal messages, otherwise people would freak out. But now their time
Blatant.
is so short.
Yep.
They're not even hiding it, and they're actually celebrating the fact that they are satanic, evil people.
I tell you what, yeah, if you haven't seen it, I saw the because I didn't watch it, but someone told me about it, so I went back and watched it and watched it. The Grammys, one of the songs, "Unholy." I mean, there's nothing that speaks for itself. It was an orgy of demonic partying. I mean, it was disgusting. It was vulgar. It elevated Satanism and Lucifer to an extreme level. It was repulsive in all levels. So if you have not seen that, that was just really, really troubling. Tell us about your upcoming appearances and your newest novel that you're currently writing, which is Dark Siege, The Demon of Daybreak Farm.
Yeah, so it's a fictional name because I couldn't use the real name, of course, but
Okay.
it is the case that changed my life. This was actually predates the case that I wrote about called Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare. So Dark Siege is my series. So it's Dark Siege because these are cases where dark spirits are laying siege to homes and to families and so forth, and overpowering people. And so this is a case that I investigated in 1990. I offered to drive the Warrens in my mom's brand new caravan at the time, and several of the other investigators, although we needed like 3 cars to carry everybody and all the equipment. But I offered to drive because I was the youngest and I guess most excited, newest member of the New England Society for Psychic Research. And we went up, it was in a case in Vermont, and I did something I'd never done prior. That morning when I got into the van, I showered and was very quiet leaving the house because it was very early on a Saturday or Sunday. And I got in the van and I did something I'd never done before. And I said, I bless this van I washed this van in the blood of Jesus Christ, that we are all protected traveling to and returning from our destination. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And I'd never done that. I don't know why I was guided to do that, but as I was traveling up the Merritt Parkway from Westport to Monroe, I was in the left lane. It's a very scenic 2-lane road, north and south. I was in the left lane. This car was wailing, just racing up behind me. And I said, oh, it's Saturday. Somebody's in a really fast sports car, and it's Westport, a very wealthy area. And somebody's just going to go flying by me. Well, it was a black car, and it came right past me, but then came parallel to me and was matching my speed at that point. And I'm like, what the heck, right? And all of a sudden, it goes up 1 car length ahead of me only. I said, why did this person slow down instead of just, blasting by me, especially now that they see that nobody's in front of me? But we were the only 2 people on the whole highway. Then all of a sudden, and as I'm, trying to pay attention to driving, of course, but I'm looking at the car, and it's literally looking like it's starting to vibrate. And then it starts to shake. And then it starts to fishtail. Like the back wheels are just cutting out from underneath the front. And he whips right into my lane, really 90-degree angle. And I slammed on the brakes and I plowed into the guy. And when I got out, I was unharmed. And I got out to ask if he's okay. And this whole window's blasted out. And he said it was like I hit solid ice. And he's completely bewildered. And the state police come. They didn't, believe him. They didn't understand why he said he would just fishtail out like he did. But something took control of his car. Right. And there were no cell phones back then. So by the time I got off the highway to call the Warrens from the Hi-Ho Motel payphone, I knew there was one there. They almost called the whole case off because they realized something had hurled that car in my way, preventing me from getting there, preventing me from driving them up. So I didn't know that at the time, but she asked me on the phone, this is very serious. Please come to the house and we'll discuss this. And, because I was already 45 minutes late because the whole thing was, jammed up because of the police investigation of the accident. But when I got there, the other investigators were like, looking at their watches and pointing at me, thinking me like I fell asleep or slept in and didn't get there in time. But they didn't know what had happened. But when I walked in the house, Ed and Lorraine were both there in the kitchen and very seriously asked, are you willing to continue go with this on this case? And I said, yes. And, Ed slapped me on the shoulder and said, "See, Lorraine, I told you it was tough." He's always making light of situations, but this was a very, very, very serious situation where they realized that something had taken control of the car. And that is why I believe I was guided to bless the van. And that shows you that we can all call upon the power of God or Christ to protect us. We all have that right and the ability to. You just need to believe it, right? So that was the beginning of this entire ordeal that changed my life, in that we went up to this case in Vermont. And what had happened is the woman met a tragic death as she was being rushed to the house where the midwife was waiting for her to deliver her baby. And they were in a wagon, horse-drawn wagon. The wagon flipped over. The body of the woman and her baby were both mangled as the wagon rolled over on them. But the family in question that was living on this property fled because they were just so terrified about all the activity that was going on in their house. They were, the classic growls and screams and dark forces and temperature changes and horrible smells and all the things that you can think of. And that's why we were called up to there and investigate. But I wanted to, Lorraine told me right from the beginning, she said, the more you're involved in cases of this nature, because I was working on cases with them, the more your sensitivities will increase and we'll see what those abilities become. We all have psychic abilities, but we don't practice honing them at all. But I was so blessed to be able to actually work with her and have her, help me with these things. But anyway, I wanted to see so badly, because in this room, as we're waiting, as we're initiating contact, and Lorraine's describing this big, tall form in a top hat, and Drew was seeing it, and then there was a woman, and I was like, I want to see, I want to be able to see a ghost, but instead, I was overcome by this woman, this discarnate spirit's grief and sadness, to the point where my jaw dropped and tears just streamed down my face. And I go, Lorraine, the sadness. And I have all this on the audio cassette, which I have in my possession, which I actually played at Scarefest in Lexington this past summer, and at Connecticut Paracon. And I'm going to be playing, at the events that I'm going to be doing. But it was the most intense activity we had, where we were trying to basically initiate contact with the spirits who are in that house. And at the end, there's a table that we're all sitting around that was bouncing up and down on all four legs, and you hear all the commotion. And this other investigator, Joe, was just screaming, "It's coming! It's coming!" And it's just mayhem. And everybody, here's the fascinating thing: everybody was experiencing something completely different than the others as this was happening. Phenomenal. So I'm writing about that whole case, and it changed my life forever, because seeing a ghost would have been really fascinating, but picking up and feeling the overwhelming sadness, grief, and despair that this one woman felt because she had lost her baby.
Wow.
If you think about, I can't even comprehend that, but all the women that are listening who are mothers, can relate to this better than I can. But imagine if you're about to go give birth and your baby's gone. To her, this happened yesterday. There's no space or time outside of this third dimension. It wasn't 150 years of anguish that she's been experiencing, because that's how long it's been since this happened. To her, she's in that state right now. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? Help me find my baby. And because I made a connection with her in the field, I didn't tell you this yet. And this is something it's the real big pivot point here, is that when we're in the field where this accident took place, I was the last one in the group to head back toward the house. I turned around. When you turn around and you see somebody looking at you because you sense they're looking at you.
Sure.
Right. I felt there was someone behind me. Right. And I turned around. I couldn't, of course, see anybody, but I intuited that she was there observing us. And I said, "Come back to the house with us." And I made a beckoning gesture with my hands, "Come back to the house with us, because we're going to try to have a communication going on." I was saying in my head. Well, to her, he can see me. She made a connection with me because I, felt her behind me. I couldn't see her, but she doesn't know that I couldn't see her. Maybe she does. I don't know. But because I made that connection, and because it turns out that I'm an intuitive empath instead of a clairvoyant, I picked up her grief. And this not only happened just that moment at the table, It happened another 6 times before I finally got home that night. It happened the second time when we were putting on our shoes to leave the house because it was getting too dangerous. And it happened again twice in the van, and then twice when I got home. And it was amazing.
For those of you who are on TikTok or Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can ask questions. I'll be happy to again, as I mentioned, if I'm able to look at the screen, I can, so you can ask that. You can ask the questions. That'll be fine. I know the chat goes by so fast. So let's see. Let me ask you this question then, Jason. There are people who will say, and I'm just kind of curious, could you have a few more minutes? I know we're kind of going over the time. You have a few more minutes with us?
I can spend 5 hours with you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Well, let me ask you this. There are people who say that when you do investigations, you are communicating with demons, and you should never do that. Do you find that is true, or do you find that that's just someone's opinion based on an opinion and not actually being an investigator themselves?
Well, the question I would ask is that the experience that individual had themselves, or is it just basically a fear response? So if we know that we are protected by the Creator at all times, we are the children of God. We are protected by God. We are protected by the angelics, right? We can call for Archangel Michael, for instance, to protect us. Gabriel, for instance, whom I always call upon when I'm passing a cemetery. I pass a cemetery, and I know, although it's rare, there could be, discarnate human spirits or other spirits that people summon intentionally in cemeteries because they're very spooky, morbid places, especially in the evening if they're practicing any kind of magical rite or something to try to summon spirits on purpose. But I call Gabriel. Thank you, Archangel Gabriel, for being here now, for taking any spirits that are lurking in this cemetery home to God. In the name and the power and the glory of the one Creator, in the name of Jesus Christ, so be it. Amen. Right? That type of thing. So you believe it, right? You have the authority to call for your protection. You have to believe that it's real. You have to believe that it's instant, right? Anything you ask for in faith, you shall receive. But if you, and I talk about all this in my analysis, but too, how to properly call for the protection of the angels versus from a statement of thanksgiving and gratitude versus from a position of lack. If you're praying and saying, "Oh, please come help," for instance, it doesn't sound very convincing. Like you even believe that you have the authority or the right to call upon protection. Are you really going to come help me? And if so, in what capacity and when? And what will you actually do for me? Versus saying, "Here, thank you for being here right now. Thank you, Archangel Michael, for being here right now, for drawing your sword, severing any connections I've made with any discarnate spirits of any nature, especially those of a negative nature, and for removing them from my life, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen." Right? And you believe it. And that is a prayer that is so much more powerful because we have the right to do it. And many people don't have that faith. So I would suggest to them, do not tread into places where you really shouldn't be walking. Don't delve into things you don't understand, especially if you don't feel like you're protected. I've always felt protected. And before I set foot in any of the first cases that I went on with the other members of the Warrens investigative team, I've always felt protected. I've always called upon the light of God, right? The light will always overcome the darkness, but you have to believe it.
That's right. and that's absolutely. And people were saying, does the Bible speak about demons? Folks, Christ spoke about demons. Quite often. The Son of God, God incarnate. So the scripture is filled with demonic passages. There's 58 Bible verses about exorcisms. 58 in scripture. So, yep, the Bible is quite clear that demons exist. And there's a lot of people who say, "Oh no, demons don't exist. It's just your imagination." That's not what Jesus said. And actually, that was a ministry that Jesus not only performed himself, but bestowed upon his disciples to cast out demons in his name. So if it's not a ministry, Jesus would not have administered that ministry to his disciples. So yes, the Bible is filled with cases in demonic possession. And again, 58 verses on exorcism just in the Bible alone. No question about that. So now you had mentioned about you call upon your guardian angels, and do you believe everyone has a guardian angel? Do you believe we only have one guardian angel?
No, I believe we have those that have been assigned to us, but I believe that we can also call upon, any of them.
Yeah.
For protection. Holy warrior angels. Bill Bean, who's a friend of mine, who's a deliverance minister.
Sure.
I call upon the holy warrior angels to fill this room, without number or something. It's just, you have the authority and the power to do it. That's why he's so effective at what he does. I've been on a case that we did up together up in upstate New York, and it was just a phenomenal experience. We really complemented each other in helping each other out at resolving this situation. But I believe we have, just like people say demons don't exist, they can also say that angels don't exist. Why? Because they don't see them.
True.
Again, we only see 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is called visible light. We can't see it. We can't perceive it, right? But we can feel it in many cases. You feel your hair stand up on your arms, or you feel the tingles in the top of your head if you're in a certain, really beautiful situation or something that's very, very scary. Trust your heart, not your gut. Your heart never lies, but trust your gut instincts. And if your gut instincts say, get the heck out of this house that you're investigating, listen to that instinct, because it's often your guides or your guardian angels, your team in spirit, any way you want to describe it. We are, I believe, protected in many ways by beings that we can't perceive and will never even know existed until we leave the body.
Yeah, I was talking to the folks the other day about I was about 15 years ago doing an investigation to someone, of course, back in the day, the FLIR cameras were the big thing and big bucks too. And a buddy of mine was, kind of boasting that he spent $10,000 or so on this camera. And I told him, I said, you go into this demonic place, you're that $10,000 camera is going to be useless. And he, no. We went in there within 5 seconds, batteries drained to nothing. And that FLIR camera ultimately was completely and totally useless. Yes, for those of you in TikTok, you can ask questions now. So please feel free to ask questions, as I mentioned about 10 minutes ago. So please feel free to do that as well. Let me ask you this question. I tell you what, I'm always very concerned when I'm working a case that has demonic, first of all, infestation signs, with, of course, a religious object desecrated, the bangings of threes, and the whole host of issues. But anytime that I hear a family, hearing a child laugh or seeing an apparition, full body apparition of a child, anytime I have cases like that, that puts up my spidey senses, if you will, because once that occurs, then I tell you, I'm deeply concerned when people have evidence of child laughing or a full body apparition of a child. From my experience as an exorcist, the majority of time when you're dealing with a child, it's not a child at all. So have you found, what are from your perspective working demonic cases, what are the tricks that you have found that the demons will use to make you believe that it is not a demon, but actually a friendly spirit who just wants to communicate?
So in this case, I wrote about I called it Dark Siege, a Connecticut family's nightmare, because it was a Connecticut family that experienced this horrific nightmare. But little Kelly, who was the 6-year-old girl, who's the one that drew the spirit home from the cemetery with her in the first place, because turns out she was clairvoyant. So her mother's an artist. That makes her a natural sensitive, according to my teacher, Ed Warren. And she actually was a sensitive as well. But her mother planted the seed, be very watchful, Kelly. Maybe we'll see a ghost. We wouldn't want it to follow us home, would we? And she literally planted that seed in Kelly's mind. And that's exactly what ended up happening. But she was looking for it at that point. She opened her senses even further. She opened her defenses even further, right? And she made connection with this, looked like a black form of a man, like just a black outline of a man. But when she was in the house, and she confided in no one with regard to what she was seeing throughout the entire case. Nobody even knew this was going on. And I left it out intentionally because nobody knew it was going on except her. She was actually seeing a black cat right? And she called it a pretty kitty, right? The black kitty. And these entities took the form of the cat that she would. What do you do when you see a cat, or especially a kitten? You want to go and hug it and play with it and pet it and love it, right? She had gained her trust. So this was her friend that only she could see. And isn't that special? Aren't I special that I have a black cat that only I can see? And it's telling me, don't let anybody else interfere with our playtime type of thing. It was actually like she had the messages or the programs or the engrams being, entered into her mind, and she trusted this cat. And when Linda, her mother, was coming to collect her things to take her away for a couple of days to stay with Auntie Julie, who was just a really close family friend, she actually heard a conversation going on inside Kelly's closet between two men. Now, if that wouldn't freak you out,
yeah,
I don't know what would. But then it became like an argument. It's like she was like, "What?" And like she ripped the doors open and says, started, shouting, "What are you doing?" And like, you'd do anything to protect your child, even though she would be in big trouble if it was two human men in there arguing. But they were like having a fight, a feud going on. And this is the type of things that can snap people's psyches, where she finally realized we are dealing with a really strange situation. We're being haunted, and they had no interest in hauntings. They had no interest in the paranormal. This is before any of the shows came out. They even lived in Monroe, and they never even knew who the Warrens were. They had no interest in this whatsoever. And Ed always explained that sometimes, why does this type of thing happen to some people and not others? And one of his answers was, sometimes it's just a test of their faith. Sometimes it's God saying, you're going to experience this because, you need to be tested. And I mean, I don't know what the reason was, why they all had to endure what they endured in this case, but I do know that it was horrific, and that the typical stuff that goes on in a case where they turn people against each other, they break the family unit up, they cause arguments to take place where none ever existed before, they cause distrust and mistrust.
Yeah.
To take place when nobody ever felt that before. And the fascinating thing is that the people, to me still, is that you can be having a conversation with somebody in a demonically infested house and have a completely different experience than what other people witness and what the person you're having a conversation with really said. You can have a normal conversation with somebody, but you're perceiving that they're shouting and yelling at you and calling you all kinds of profanities, and calling you out on your deepest secrets that nobody would know. And you can't believe your ears that this person is absolutely insulting you and calling you names and viciously abusing you, and then acting like nothing happened. And when you question them about it, why would you say that to me? She's like, what are you talking about? It's so interesting. It's like you're being overcome. It's like again, I'll quote The Matrix just because it's a visual that people can see. It's like Agent Smith overriding the individual that's there. You remember he like comes through them and then pops up. It's like, and what's really, people are saying I cannot find the podcast tonight. Several people are telling me that. I don't know why. That I told about. So we'll have to figure out. We'll have to get him the recording. So there's an example of a friend of mine. He's a U.S. Marine captain in Texas, and he confided in me that something was affecting his daughter, and he started to cry. And that's how disturbed he was about it. There's something wrong. There's something evil in her room, and he's crying and describing this place on the floor that even the cat avoids, right? So I asked my friend Tracy, I said, can you take a look? And the response is looking. And she doesn't even have to leave her house, right? And she'll go and check it out, and she'll tell me exactly what's going on. And there literally was a portal in the middle of the floor, like a giant hole, and overlaying this friend of mine's daughter, 14-year-old daughter, was like Smeagol from the Lord of the Rings. When Gandalf tries to have Bilbo, says, give me Bilbo, the ring is still in your pocket.
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, so it is. Well, it's mine. right? And he just turns into this vicious, snarling thing. You know, that's the type of thing that overpowers the living human host, right? I don't believe that she was possessed because it didn't require an exorcism, but she just dispatched this thing and got rid of it, right? And closed the hole. And my friend calls me crying, sobbing and weeping, saying, I have my daughter back for the first time in years. She's cleaning her room and she's washing her car and she's smiling and she's like we knew she used to be. You know, in all these years, she was overcome by this presence. And how this thing ended up opening a doorway or a vortex or a portal in her room and overcoming her and controlling her, that's how these things happen. And you won't even know it. You won't even know it. And I'm so blessed. And there's another friend I have, Corinne, and she'll be upset if I don't mention her. And she's, I think you know Corinne.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very talented at what she does as well. I mentioned Tracy because she's the first one that really came to my aid on a case in New York that I was doing with Bill Bean, requesting help before Bill Bean agreed to go with me. I said, I don't want to go up there by myself. I'm looking for a real genuine psychic. And she answered the call and she told me exactly what's going on all throughout the property, what's going on in each room, who's being affected, what's there. And it was just incredible. So it's like, I don't even have to leave my house anymore, or she doesn't leave her house. I'll just say, hey, I got a person experiencing this problem. And here's a case about an incubus attack. But here's an interesting fact. So there was a woman who was being sexually abused by a spirit for a decade.
Yeah.
Terrified to go to sleep at night because she knew she was going to be attacked. And I was contacted by some team that heard about my books and so forth. And I said, well, I'm going to just go ask Tracy. And she said, wow. She said, this guy, and he was a human spirit, who actually went and took a bus to go to women's homes and terrorize them. And he was continuing this campaign as a discarnate human spirit, but he would found a way to be able to physically manipulate their bodies and actually abuse them, where to the point where they were actually feeling physically attacked, the same way a demonic incubus would or a succubus would. So that's an interesting field of study right there. She believes he was a human spirit. She could have been wrong, I guess, but these things happen.
Yes, they do.
And again, the reason I was so hesitant to write the sequel to Dark Siege of Connecticut Family's Nightmare, which was the most terrifying case of demoniacal retribution we've ever experienced, ever. And when I say that, I mean, it's these spirits came back with a vengeance to attack anybody who was in any way involved in the case, in the original portion of the case, in an effort to help spare the family from their attacks, except those that were blessed during the first part of the case. And that's a fascinating aspect too. Just like we can bless the van, just like I can bless the caravan. When people are blessed, there's an extra level of protection. And Ed always asks, were people baptized? Were they, how strong of a faith do they have? That's the first question Lorraine asked me. How strong is your faith, honey? And she had to ask me that, even though she can perceive my auric fields and so forth. But she had to ask me that, and she had to hear me say it. And to what degree of confidence I had in my response. And I believe that those are all majorly important things to somebody like her who can perceive what's really going on. And she can tell you whether you're going to make it or not, or whether you're going to develop abilities, and if you're going to be successful, or if you have no business getting involved in these cases. Because I'd always said, once you embark down this road, training under me and inserting yourself into people's lives for the purpose of expelling demonic spirits that are affecting them, you're going to become a marked man or a marked woman. And they're going to come after you when you're sick and when you're down and when when your defenses are down.
Man.
But
true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
So,
there's a couple of questions that I saw there on TikTok, and I know there's a lot of people asking questions. The two questions that have jumped out that I wanted to talk to you about, from your perspective as a demonologist who've actually worked cases. The first question that I would ask is, What do you think from your experience when you see someone who has an attachment, a demonic attachment? And I've talked about this ad nauseum on the lives many, many times before. But for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, a lot of people are. So the question is from your experience, someone who has a demonic attachment, what are the manifestations in determining that there's a demonic attachment? And then we'll talk about psychics and how do you square that from the biblical perspective. So we'll talk about that second. But first, how do you, as a demonologist, decipher whether or not someone has a demonic attachment or not?
Okay, so I'll give you a real world example about a case I actually was doing. That was not a case, but I was a vendor at Rhode Island Comic Con last year.
Okay.
And a woman, I'd say in her 60s, came up to the table with this little boy, and she wanted to talk to me in private as the boy was making circles around her, acting like really, really distraught and really, really on edge, right? And she confided in me that she believes that her grandson is possessed, right? And I asked, what kind of, what leads you to believe that? And what started happening, right? And it's the eye color change. Their eyes are often very, very dark, especially from the side. And personality changes, very angry, very negative, drawing very disturbing things on paper with crayons and so forth. Very, what do they call that man?
Oh,
people see.
Yeah, tall man or hat man
or
yeah,
whatever that is. Yeah. But anyway, things like that, right? And being very, very, completely switching personalities. Like I use the example of Bilbo being overcome by a dark spirit. It's mine, that type of thing, and literally seeing like the snarling teeth. And that's what my friend Tracy saw overlaying this young girl, 14-year-old. Literally, this snarling visage appears out of nowhere. Like you're looking at something that's being taken over, right? And you can sense things. And the kid, because it knew, whatever it was that was actually affecting him, knew that she was trying to seek help from me. It was freaking out. He was freaking out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I asked her on the phone. I said, can I ask my friend Tracy what she sees and if she can help you? And she said, sure. And Tracy asked me for her phone number, and they had a phone call together, and she cleared him right there on the spot. And he was completely different. The energy was completely different. You'll feel like a static, not a static. You'll feel like an animosity so intense, it's like kinetic. It's like static electricity is the way I was thinking of it. You can just feel this very, like a distortion field around somebody that just feels so off. And it's the same feeling you get when you pass by a house that is infested. Right? It's because it's not normal. It's paranormal, which means it's not normal, right? It's outside of the norm, right? So it's a term that's totally overused, and the whole term paranormal investigator now is just so played out, and the term demonologist is so played out because it doesn't mean anything like it used to, like we're talking about. Anybody can just slap that title on themselves. Yeah. Without real world experience. As you say, you need primary experience. You need to be able to actually be involved.
That's right.
Where you are, interacting with these entities and commanding them in the name of God. Like Ed always said, I can't cast demons out in the name of Ed Warren.
That's right.
That would be silly, right? I would invite attacks upon myself on a scale that I've never seen. It's always in the name of God, the creator. So God, the creator, is the creator of all souls. So when you call upon the creator of all that is, there's nothing in his creation that could stand against it. And it's almost futile and folly when you think about the fact that these entities, they can weave their way into your life because you're used a Ouija board and you issued the wrong commands, or you used, magic, or, dark magic or sorcery or intentions just to invite them in your lives. But when people enter your life who are able to help you because they have the faith and they have the power to call upon the power of God, there's no way they can withstand it. So why even endure an exorcism is my question to you. Why would they even stick around to endure the what has to be an agonizing experience in the form of an exorcism versus just saying, all right, I'm out of here, bye. What do you think the reason is for that?
Well, because they don't want their intellect and their will being broken, because ultimately in the solemn rite of exorcism, the intellect and will of the exorcist and the intellect and will of the demonic are at battle, and one is going to win, one's going to lose. And we basically force the demonic to succumb to the crucifix by praying the rosary, the litany of the saints, the rite itself. And ultimately they're going to lose. And they know that when you stand in the power of Christ in persona Christi and you call upon God, the angels and saints above in heaven, they know that if they stick around and try to fight this thing because of their pride, just as Lucifer's pride, because of their pride, thinking that they're going to beat your intellect and will, the exorcist, that they think they're going to be able to do it by parlor tricks. And then when they realize, oh my goodness, the church is behind them, the litany of saints is behind them, and then they realize their intellect and will is being eradicated, that's when it's over. That's when it's done. And they put up a fight as much as they can, but it's too late. The trap has been set. Their pride is their fall, and ultimately they surrender to the crucifix. And as Revelation says, it will be thrown into the lake of fire, of sulfur. So they certainly don't want that. But those who stick around because of their pride, thinking that your intellect and will is going to be eradicated, ultimately they lose. And that's certainly the last thing. And of course, immediate torment then begins, as Revelation speaks about. Now, let me ask you this question. Now, I'm really curious about your perspective, because I knew Lorraine as well. Lorraine was a sweetheart. It was funny because when you were imitating her as what she would say, I remember just the way you're right on. You are right on the way. But there's a lot of people who immediately say, well, if you're psychic or if you're medium, you're doing the work of the devil, because of course it talks about, in the Holiness Code about going to psychics and medium, although I've explained this a billion times to people, terminology changes. The language we use today is not the same language that they understood in Hebrew culture. So from your perspective and knowing people who are gifted, psychically gifted, do you think that is an evil act, that they're speaking to demons, or do you think that's a legitimate gift that God bestows upon individuals?
I think we are supposed to have the innate gift of the six senses and the greater senses: clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, empathy. Empathy, we're all supposed to have. We're all living things, but we've been completely hijacked and completely shunted by the dark forces, and we are perceiving, like I said, we're perceiving this physical reality in this third dimension as if this is all there is. And because 99% of the people perceive this as all there is, anything that is claimed to exist outside of what they believe exists is cause for condemnation and ridicule, because it hurts them to believe, well, I can't see it, so it can't be real. And if I can't see it and somebody else can, then that is an ego blow to me. So I don't know, but I know so many psychics, and I know so many genuine psychics, I should say, and I believe in it, and I believe it is a good thing, and I believe that they are, especially when their purpose is to help their fellow man, like Tracy and Corinne and so many others in these regards, because they have the gifts. And of course, Lorraine, I'm so blessed again. I think, it's just such an amazing experience to be able to work with them. And I didn't think about it at the time, they're investigating the unknown. I want to get involved. I want to unlock the secrets of the universe. Like my sister-in-law, she said, what are you doing tonight? And I said, I'm going on a case with Ed and Lorraine Warren. I don't know if I even mentioned them because they weren't the celebrities that they are now then. But she says, that's not normal. You need to be going out on dates. I said, I'll find a date to take on a case as I'm unlocking the secrets of the universe. It's like, this is so much more interesting to me, and getting involved myself. I mean, my grandmother, she's the one that gave me those blessed rosary beads, and she was on edge about me going and inserting myself through my free will into these situations. And like Ed said, you're inserting yourself into these things, into these situations, and they're going to notice, and that you're a marked individual. Now, mark me all you want to, because the power of God is within me and protects me at all times. And I'm not going to stand around and watch people get, oppressed and possessed and not do anything about it. So I do what I can. Can't help everybody, obviously.
Yeah.
But I believe, and I always said, I am yours in service, Father, and help me help others to the best of my ability. And I do it without ego. And I'm not a big TV personality. I'm not a para celeb, but I also say I'm the anti-ghost hunter, because we don't hunt humans in bodies. So what are we hunting ghosts for? I mean, the term is just silly.
Yes, ghost hunting. I hate
the
it.
fact that we can only perceive 1% of what's around us, and the idea that we're hunting something that has full spectrum vision,
right,
as well as telepathy. When you're outside of the body, these beings, even a human spirit outside of the body, can read your mind, can project things into your mind, from my experience, and is so much more attenuated to the reality of this universe than we'll ever be while we're in body. It's humorous. I almost came up with a meme, and it was like a guy who's claiming to be a ghost hunter lurking around with a flashlight and a camera and a video recorder, audio recorder, in a pitch black room, and there's all these forms above and behind and around them laughing, like covering their mouths. They're laughing because they're laughing at the idea that this guy's hunting them. And it's like, my purpose on this earth is to help people, discarnate human spirits, come to terms with their plight and to cross them over.
Two things that I want to briefly mention to people. People are saying, well, Catholicism wasn't as far as the first to establish exorcism. You're right. Christ was the one who established performing an exorcism. However, for those of you who want a little bit of history, you should know that the first mention of an exorcist, actually from an office, comes from Pope Cornelius in 253. And of course, the first form of rite of exorcism was in 1614. So this is a very ancient ritual. So that's why a lot of people talk about Roman Catholicism and the rite of exorcism. Now, let me just say very quickly, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but for those of you who are asking about, and Jason's answer about psychic mediumship, folks, I've said this before. You have to understand why it was written in Leviticus, in the Holiness Code. The Holiness Code, which, by the way, is obsolete. We no longer follow the Holiness Code. There are 613 laws. We're no longer under the Old Covenant. And it talked about you should not go see psychics and necromancies, but it was not our same understanding that we have at the terms today. They were talking about individuals who are intermediaries, because you had paganism that was enculturating with the Hebrew culture. Then they were trying to establish a monotheistic faith. So the Hebrew culture was having major problems with paganistic cultures. So if someone died in your family and you had to go to these intermediaries, and they have 15 gods, God of rain, God of trees, God of grass, God of whatever, and you offer shekels to each god, because if you did not, then that God of rain would punish your loved one for eternity. That's the necromancy that it speaks about. And if you didn't offer enough shekels, then that's what would happen. So then a family member a year later passed away. You go to the same intermediary, and then say, oh no, we don't have 15 gods. Now we have 25 gods. And now it's not 5 shekels. Now it's 20 shekels. So you would have to offer 20 shekels to each god. Otherwise, this God of rain would punish your loved one for in Hades forever. That, for those of you that, well, I've never heard of it. Well, then you can talk to the Roman Catholic Church, because actually I learned that in graduate school. So that is what the abomination was about. That is their understanding of psychic mediums, the intermediaries between the pagan gods and you having to offer shekels to those gods, and it was a fraud. They were committing fraud, and they were taking advantage of people's loss of a loved one, saying that they're going to raise your loved one up from the dead and then punish them forever in Hades. That's the necromancy, folks. So now you have the whole story. So there we go. Now, I want to remind everybody, you need to go to Jason's website and order these books, www.darksiege.com. You just got to, what is your third book? When is it coming out? The next book that you have?
I'm writing it now. I want to have it out by Halloween or October, which is the major month for the conventions that I'm doing. I'm doing the third Warren's Paracon in October at Mohegan Sun Casino here in Connecticut. That date was just announced, so that's going to be the 28th and 29th of October this year at Mohegan Sun Casino is the third Ed Lorraine Warren's Paracon, called Phantasmacon now. That's going to be really great. And the week prior to that, I'm doing Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky, the 20th and 21st, 22nd. But I want to have the books out by, hopefully out by September, this new book. I'm doing Massachusetts Paracon October 1st. TerrorCon in Rhode Island on the 16th and 17th of September. And my next upcoming event is in May in Ohio, which is Parapsychon. I'm going to actually be a speaker.
Cool.
And sell my books there. That's in the Ohio State Reformatory. And I think that's the 20th and 21st of May. And earlier in May is Connecticut Paracon. I'm doing that too. So lots of different events I do. And I basically set up this really great vendor table with my banners and books and so forth, and talk to people about my experiences and sell my books there, and especially when I can do lecturing. But so the new book is going to be called Dark Siege, The Demon of Daybreak Farm. And it is, the one that really changed my perspective and changed my life, because I, again, picked up the emotion of a discarnate human spirit, where I just literally bawled my eyes out at that table in front of everybody, going, Lorraine, the sadness. And I have the audio cassette, so I have to try to figure out how I can weave in the audio recording into like the digital copy, like the Kindle version or something, because it's so potent and scary. And again, my purpose in writing these books is not to scare people or to lower their vibration or to have them, attract anything of a negative vibration into their lives. It's to show you what can happen if you delve into things you don't understand, and if you use Ouija boards incorrectly and invite things into your life through your own intention, which is everything. Your intention is everything. And the analysis sections at the end of each book break down all the activity in each chapter, what the family did right, what they did wrong, in most cases wrong, which is why they keep spiraling out of control, how and why these things are happening, what's going on behind the scenes, understanding the modus operandi behind these dark forces and so forth, and what the tricks were to try to trip the family up and gain access to the house again. So volume 2, they were desperate to gain access to the house again after they were expelled at the end of volume 1. This is all completely true. There's nothing that's embellished. And the activity that happened is so horrific, it is beyond belief. And a lot of it was simple projection, mass projection into people's minds. And if we have time, I can get into that, because that was what happened the very first case I ever went on, representing the Warrens, the next night after I went to the class the first night. And that was a simple case where Lou and I, paramedic, my friend, and the husband and wife in this case, were all sitting in a bedroom, peering down the hallway, waiting for this apparition to walk down the hallway, which is what they saw every evening. And in the room where she came out of every evening, a bright blue flash of light flashed like lightning had gone off inside the room. That's how amazing and bright this bright blue flash of light was. I had the blinds drawn. I had candles lit in there. I had the camcorder aimed at the wall. And I said, oh my God, we're going to get the most incredible evidence on camera on our very first case. When we replayed the tape, there was nothing. on the tape. I thought it was going to be so bright we wouldn't even know where it originated from. But there was absolutely no change in luminance or brightness in the room. But Lou heard a heartbeat, a very, very faint heartbeat, and he literally went out of his mind. That is I think he called it a diarthritic heartbeat, and that's an arthritic heartbeat, and something else. He identified 3 specific heartbeats that were so faint we all missed them because we're not trained to listen for them. But he picked them up, and when we examined the tape, when I brought the tape off, dropped the tape off to the Warrens the next day, they go over everything, and then they prepare the class for the next Monday night. They said that the woman was there, but she was not going to give us evidence on film, but she projected, this is just a human spirit, mind you. Okay. She projected the bright blue flash of light into our third eyes, or our pineal glands, right? It's a physical gland that's in our body. It's got rods and cones. It's photosensitive. It's our interdimensional conduit. It's how we have full color dreams in a pitch black room with our eyes closed. And that's how we receive these impressions. So she projected that into our third eye so we would all see it. And she projected the heartbeat onto the magnetic tape. And magnetic is the key word there, by the way. Electromagnetic, magnetic, onto the tape for Lou to hear. And that's how people can be in a room together and one person will see something and the others will not. Or a group of people will see a craft hovering above the trees, damn well sure that they just saw a UFO plain as day, and the others see absolutely nothing at all. It's because they can project, they being, especially, well, in that case, is it ETs or is it demonic, whatever, but they're projecting these images into our minds, they're projecting sounds into our heads. So as an example, people who may have a difficult time grasping this, you're sitting alone in your apartment or in your house. Nobody else is in the house, yet you hear creaking floorboards above you, as if somebody is walking on the floor above you where you're sitting. Yeah. Or a creaking door, right? The door is creaking and slamming shut. And that's not possible because there's nobody else in the house. There's not any physical body above you on the second floor walking along the floorboards, applying the body's weight to the floorboard, causing the creak. That's not the case because there's nobody in the house with you. So how are you hearing a creaking floorboard as if that were the case? Or a door slamming, or a cat meowing, or a baby crying, or a child laughing, as you mentioned the child earlier? It's because these things are being projected right into your mind. And we believe that to be a physical phenomenon, but it is nothing of the sort. In the same way, these demonic entities in homes can project blood-curdling screams, or they can project the putrid smell of rotting excrement, or any of these horrible things that people experience in these demonically infested homes, because they're attempting to startle you and cause you to emit fear, which then they can feast upon. They actually use your fear as a fuel source, and to cause you to experience all kinds of horrors, and they get a kick out of it.
Well, boy, I'd say that there is a lot here. I do appreciate you jumping on. I know we were 45 minutes over the time because we were just going to have you on for 7:45, but you know what? We just decided to keep on going. So I tell you what, I definitely 1,000,000% want you back on air this October when the third book drops, and okay. We'll definitely have you back on. No ifs, ands, or buts if you'd like to.
I'd love to.
Great.
I think we should pull an all-nighter right now until midnight.
Yeah. Woo, it's going to be a long one. I'll tell you what. But,
I know.
First of all, darksiege.com, and where else can folks reach out for you?
Well, if you order the book through darksiege.com, it's a PayPal link. It goes right to me. I have cases of books right here, and I'll sign it and personalize it any way you like. A personal message to you. I'll sign it and I'll pop it in the mail, and you'll get it in just a few days. Okay. You can also get it on Amazon. The Kindle edition is there. The paperbacks are there. I offer it for the same price. And I also don't charge shipping. But if you get it from me, you get it personalized and autographed, of course. But not that I'm some celeb or anything, but it is nice to get a signed copy.
Sure.
I'll also be doing all these events. So I'm going to be starting to post the events that are coming up on my darksiege.com webpage under the events tab. I also have a lot of previous events and photographs from those events and so forth. I have a Facebook page, which is Dark Siege. I switch between that and my personal page because I have so many different other interests and so forth. But I'm always welcoming emails, welcoming messages via Facebook and so forth. I do my best to get back to everybody. But the books, the most common comments throughout all of Amazon, and I think I have 299 reviews right now over volume 1, because only such a small percentage of people actually leave reviews, but I have almost a perfect 5-star rating with close to 300 reviews. And the number one comment is, I could not put this book down, but I could not read it. I could not read it through the night because they were too terrified.
And do you have a TikTok?
I've never used TikTok. And the thing that I've really dropped the ball on, which I need to do, is do my own podcast. So anybody who's listening now, if you found what I've had to say interesting, and if you would like me to start a podcast of my own, as well as being on Bishop Long's show, which I'm very much appreciative of, just let me know. Send me a message somehow so I can,
Well, I might have
to.
I might have to get you connected to our Mr. Producer here behind the scenes on KGRADB, because Andrea Perrin actually runs her show right after mine. So yeah, so maybe perhaps we can get you guys hooked up and go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
I'm open to all possibilities, and I thank you so much for having me on. And I really appreciate everybody who tuned in to listen to this. And if it was in any way helpful, I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful for that. And thanks again.
Someone just said, and I amen to this, anybody, if you have friends that are producers, or if they maybe television shows or movies, folks, you need to tell them they need to make a movie out of Dark Siege. I'm telling you that I've seen a lot of movies, paranormal, demonic related, and a lot of them are junk. So if you know producers, executive producers, then you need to share this with them and say, you need to read The Dark Siege and you need to make a movie out of it, because it's credible, it's powerful, it's intense, and it's valid. So www.darksiege.com. Jason, thank you for being here. I appreciate that, buddy.
I really appreciate you too. God bless you.
All right, have a great day. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Well, that was my friend Jason McLeod. I tell you what, he really is top-notch guy, just a really good guy. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Somebody needs to make a Dark Siege film. They need to do it. I have strongly endorsed these books, and I'm sure that when I read the third one, when I read the last one that he's doing, what he's working on right now, and hopefully he said he'll have it by October, it'll be The Dark Siege, The Demon of Daybreak Farm. I know for a fact already that once I read it, I'm not going to be able to put it down. So I'm telling you, he's just that type of author. Do yourself a favor, www.darksiege.com, SIEGE.com. There you go. I appreciate you checking it out. Yeah, some people, I don't know, we're on TikTok, we're putting it in Latin. I don't know why they were writing in Latin. That was interesting. They were Ecce ad Agnus Dei, which is behold the Lamb of God. And so that's what we do if you're in the Latin rite. When you elevate the host and the consecrated host, behold the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world. Happy are we who are called to his holy supper. So anyway, I don't know why someone put that, but anyway, okay. And someone was asking about. We appreciate. Well, thank you very much. It's all right. You can. That's no big deal. You can. The Bishop Father. It's it's titles are titles. But someone was asking, was saying, and I noticed that, and this is important. It needs to be clear, because especially on social media, there's a lot of people trying to diminish the divinity of Christ, and they use parts of Scripture saying Luke chapter 18 verse 18. verse 18 through 19, where someone ran up to Jesus and said, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Well, why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." So people are saying, aha, that proves it right there, that Jesus, he denied his divinity. No, he did not. That's not what he did. If you actually read what he said, he did not imply that he isn't good. That's not what he says. That's not what he said. Christ never mentioned that he isn't good. That's not what he said. He said, "Why do you call me good? Because only the Father is good." So, what he is establishing is that the person recognizes that he is God, that the Messiah, and that's what it means. So, the young rich ruler was clearly referring to Jesus as a mere man, a good teacher, human origin, and Christ was 100% human and 100% God at the same time. So what does this wealthy? So this young fellow actually know about goodness. Well, we in Romans chapter 3, verse 23, it says there are no good men. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So the rich man was referring to Jesus as a good teacher just prior to asking what he needs to do to inherit eternal life. And only God can answer how you can inherit eternal life. So it implies that this person either assumed that Jesus is a mere man or that you need to do something to earn salvation. Jesus said, no. So you have to understand that Jesus was not denying that he is good. Jesus was saying, well, why are you calling me good? Because only God is good. And I'm telling you how you're going to inherit eternal life. Jesus was telling him he's good. That's logic. Premise 1, premise 2, conclusion. Okay. All right. So there we go. Hopefully that, I'm sure people are still answering the question. But anyway. Incubus and succubus are quite violent. I've had several cases that were incubus and succubus. And I've talked about this before. I've actually had her on, the daughter of a 68-year-old woman who suffered from an incubus case. Incubus and succubus will start as not a violent, many times not violent at all. Some people call them if you fantasize during your dreaming. And what happens is it becomes very intrusive. Now, here's what you need to understand. People say, well, it only happens when I'm sleeping. Well, in incubus and succubus cases is not contingent upon whether you are sleeping or not. Now, many times it starts through a sleep stage. However, it becomes so intrusive that it's actually even occurring when you are wide awake. So like this 68-year-old woman, what was occurring with her, it started originally when she was just sleeping. And then it became to a point where it was at any time, at any hour. She told me she was driving her truck once, her pickup truck, and it attacked her violently. She was fully awake. So, that's what happened. Oh yeah. The car situation is driving me nuts. So yes, I have a Jeep Patriot, and no, I don't charge from a ministry. I haven't charged in 2 decades, never charged, ever. Not one time have I ever charged. And my Jeep Patriot has decided that the transmission want to go out. And it's a CVT transmission. For those of you who know anything about CVT transmissions, it's actually, I've already called a million places, well, not, but so many, every time. If I wanted to get a brand new CVT transmission, it's $9,000. That's stupid. But that's what the price is, a brand new CVT transmission. So I can get a rebuilt CV transmission with a 3-year warranty. The cheapest I have found was $4,500. Sure, I'm just going to go out in the backyard and pick them, $4,500 from my money tree. No problem. So that's the cheapest I found. It's not a regular it's a CVT transmission. If you know anything about transmissions, there you go. No, I don't want to do a GoFundMe page because I already get enough hate as it is. And if I do a GoFundMe page, then the hate would increase times 1,000. And right now, my stress level, I'm a human being like everybody else. I'm a little stressed with this car situation because it's limiting my ability to do ministry. But I do the best I can online. That's what I have to do. There's nothing else I can do. So, but anyway, yeah, I checked the junkyard. I've checked. Yep. And even with the junkyard, you're not guaranteed. They're not going to give you a warranty, and it's a couple grand just for a CVT transmission. So I'd rather, spend $3,500 and you get a 3-year warranty. And so that's. I know it is a CVT is a real problem. You're right. It's terrible. It is. Those transmissions are. Anyway, if you know anything about CVT transmissions, then you know better than I do. So I've learned so much about transmissions since this stupid thing. Oh man, it's frustrating. And of course, when it's a 2011 car, so there's no warranty on the car. So what do you do? But you have a Jeep. You've had to replace your oh boy. So you had a Jeep Patriot and you had to replace your transmission. Yeah, I'm telling you. Well, thank you very much for those on TikTok. It is. Yeah. So well, howdy there, Jennifer. Oh, yours is about to go out too. Yeah, it's if you have a CVT transmission, they're expensive, folks. Like I said, it's $3,500 to buy a rebuilt transmission, and then you have $900 for the labor to put it in. So that's $4,400, and then with taxes and then the fluid, transmission fluid, and all that stuff, I think he said it's $160. I don't know. So anyway, $4,500 was the cheapest one. Anyway, that's what are you going to do? So on Malachi Martin, yeah, I do. I read Malachi's books, of course, A Hostage to the Devil. He was a very, very intelligent, skilled in the field of demonology. Keep in mind, he was the chief exorcist of Rome. It's all Megs. It's Bishop James Long, all one word. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's Bishop James Long. Okay. Well, now people understand demonic entities do not possess objects. Demonic entities possess people, just like demonic entities do not possess homes. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as possession on a home. Demonic entities infest homes. So you don't perform an exorcism on a home. You don't put the solemn rite of exorcism. You perform the minor rite of exorcism on the demonic entity that has infested itself within the home, and you bless the home. So hopefully, yeah, I don't want a down payment. No. I get what you're right. You're right. $4,500 could be a down payment, but I don't want a car loan and all that stuff, because cars deteriorate in value, and I just don't want it. But I appreciate that. Okay. How can we awaken Christ within the intellectual class? Well, actually, I think it is intellectual it's completely logical to believe in Christ from a logical perspective, as well as through faith, because we have historical documentation that clearly shows that Yeshua of Nazareth existed. People say this to me a lot. There's no such thing that Jesus ever existed. Yes, there is. That's a bold-faced lie. Do not believe that, folks. If you hear anywhere on social media that they say there's no proof that Jesus existed, yes, there is. That is a bold-faced lie. That's coming from people who have no idea what they're talking about. They have no historical training. I'm telling you, they do. Flavius Josephus was a first-century Jewish historian writer. He was not Christian. And Flavius Josephus writes about Yeshua of Nazareth, who was crucified, and then writes that many claim was resurrected. So we have a lot of documentation, historical documentation from non-Christian sources that speak of Yeshua of Nazareth and that many people consider as the Messiah. So it's just simply not true. It's not true. So, okay. Run the demonic out or clergy? Oh, Cristobal, that's a great question. Can any run the demonic out or just clergy? Well, keep in mind, we have to be very, very careful with that type of question, because first of all, understand that there's a difference between running a demonic entity out as far as demonic infestation versus someone who is under the stage of possession. If someone is under the stage of possession, you better know what you're doing, because the person could have a stroke or heart attack during the stage of possession. So if someone's playing exorcist and they have no idea what they're doing, they have no idea what the stages are of exorcism, and they have no one trained who is monitoring the vitals of the possessed, that person could actually get in some serious, serious trouble performing exorcisms and then have a person die on them. Now, when you're talking about the demonic infestation, yes, you can absolutely pray, and you can pray for the removal of that demonic entity, no question. But keep in mind, I want to remind you, all of you, of in Scripture, Acts chapter 19, verse 13 through 16. Okay, that's the sons of Sceva. Acts chapter 19, verses 13 through 16. Where these individuals were running around saying, to people who are possessed, and they ran across a person who's legitimately possessed, and they said, I have cast you out by the name of Jesus, and Paul proclaims, and this kind of stuff. And the demon replied, well, Jesus I know, Paul I recognize, but who are you? And the men in whom the evil spirit, then the demonic entity, leaped upon them, beat them viciously, overpowered them, and they fled out of the house, naked and wounded. So you got to be very careful when you're dealing with demonic entities and you're going to cast them out. Then you need to be aware that now they're aware of you. So just be aware of that. Acts chapter 19, verse 13 through 16. Stay away from haunted items. Do not collect haunted items. Folks, stay away from them, please. Now, there's nothing good that's going to come from collecting a haunted item. I have a storage room full of objects that people have purchased that were haunted items, and then when they brought it home, all hell broke loose in their home. Stay away from them. There's nothing good that's going to come from them. I give you my word. Here's the deal. And if you're going to say, well, that's just stupid, fine. Then you go ahead and collect them. And then when all hell breaks loose in your house, don't get mad at me when you call me and say, I need you to come over and fix this now. Well, you're the one who broke it. So don't break it, because I can't come to every person's home. So I'm just giving you a heads up. Don't burn them, because that's a portal. They've opened that. You have a demonic attachment. You need to send them to me. I will bless them, and I will teach you how to do the epiphany of the doors in your home, and you can bless the home, and that'll be that. 99% of the time, that takes care of it. Do not destroy them. So if you've done something with a Ouija board or any type of object that you purchased, send them to me, and I will take care of that, and I will teach you how to do the epiphany of the doors. Okay. No, I don't charge. I wouldn't never charge. No, I don't charge people. See, this is sad that people are. Why I would never charge someone how to pray the epiphany of the door. Never. I've been doing this for 2 decades. You don't destroy them, because there's an attachment. When you bring that attachment, that object that has a demonic attachment into your home, then guess what you have done? You have now created a demonic infestation. Because once the demonic has attached to an object and you bring it home, it is then in your home. By the very implication, it is now infested within your home. So you remove that portal, that attachment, you send it to me, I will seal it, and then I will teach you the epiphany of the doors. That's it. Okay? Folks, just don't do it. Don't play around with that kind of stuff. And if you do, I'm telling you, I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to be able to fix the problem. I'm just not. Why do I have dreams about what? Well, that's a good question. C.S. Wager, 1972. Why do I continue to have dreams with friends and family who have passed away? There's a lot of people who have talked about family members who have passed on. And they are wanting thank you, Mr. Producer. They are wanting a message from their loved one. I would say to you, if you have been wanting or hoping for a message from your loved one, remember your loved one doesn't say, hey, it's me. Hey, I'm Sally over here. Remember your mom or your sister. That's many times they try to come to us in the way that they are able to, through dreams. And we know that the Spirit speaks to people through dreams because the Old Testament is filled with it. Even Mary and even Joseph, the angel came to them in the dream. So we see a dream state where spirits, angels come to us to give us a message. So I would say to you that if you're having it and it's recurring, then find out what exactly it is that they're trying to let you know, whatever it might be. And 9 times out of 10, I have found it's always them trying to comfort you. So if you're going through extreme anxiety or extreme, whatever it might be, they're trying to let you know it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And that's what I have found. That's at least from my experience. All right, for those of you who are on Spreaker, I'm going to say goodnight to you and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I'm going to remind all of you, as I do always, TikTok, I'm going to stay with you guys after the show for a little bit. So we'll stay with you for just a moment. But I'm going to remind you all, and I want you to please remember this. Your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. Remember, you are priceless, and never let anybody convince you otherwise. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, KGRADB Radio. Good night. The Sacred Division has been brought to you by Bishop Long's online paranormal course. Learn demonology, angelology, paranormal studies, and genealogy. It's 100% online, and you learn at your own pace. Please go to www.bishopjameslong.com and click on the paranormal course link.